Well, good morning, Delaware. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Nicole.
Happy May. I guess it was May last Friday, too, but happy days.
Just happy days.
Happy days. We are, of course, here this morning. I'm Nicole. This is Molly. We've also got Mark here. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi.
But I'm going to let Molly introduce our guest today because this one's extra special.
We have one of my favorite people as a guest. I brought my mom.
Yay.
Good morning, Mom. Linda Myers is her name, I guess. But good morning, Mom.
Thank you, Molly and Nicole.
You're quite welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I was like, oh, yeah. I was thinking on my way down, do I call her Mom or Mama Myers or Miss Linda?
She was a teacher.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But you're probably Mrs. Myers when you were.
Mrs. Myers.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Well, of course you're here today because it is Mother's Day this weekend. And we thought, who else to honor but our mothers? My mother is listening. So happy Mother's Day, Paula, or Mrs. Drum, or Miss Paula, or Mama Drum.
I think we are two people who won the mom lottery. So
I think we did. Yeah.
I think so, too.
Absolutely. But as usual, we're going to talk books. And we know that you read books because Molly talks about it all the time. We also know that you listen because Molly mentioned that. Yes. And we joked that we've lost 50% of our listeners because one of them is here in the studio this morning. Sorry, Mark.
That's funny. That's cute.
But yeah, Molly, let's kick us off with some books this morning.
Okay. Brought y'all a cozy mystery.
Here we go.
Yay.
I've been in the need. Well, I'm in a celebratory mood, so you've got to listen to the things that make you happy when you're happy. Right. And after Tuesday, I'm very happy. So I want to talk about a book called Iced Under. It's actually the 5th book in the main clam bake mystery by Barbara Ross.
Clam bake mystery.
The clam bake mystery. I love these cozy mysteries.
I hate this.
And like most cozy mysteries, I haven't read any of the other books in this series, and I totally jumped right in. So this starts with a company that owns a clam bake restaurant, but they are famous for being a part of a family that owned the richest house in the city. Now, they don't live in that anymore. They struggle with their bills day to day. But one day, Julia is over with her mother, and a package arrives. No return address, and inside of it is a diamond necklace.
Ooh,
a
okay.
black diamond necklace.
That's better than where my mind went.
Well, her mother goes silent because it's the missing necklace, the black widow necklace from her family's estate, and
Whoa.
It could be worth millions. And when Julia takes it to be appraised, it's worth over $2 million.
Nice.
But who's in it?
Right.
Does somebody else have a claim to it? What's going on? So this gets into their entire family's history, down to the fact of something I didn't know. There were moguls in Maine, New Jersey, all of that area that made their millions on ice. And it's like the coal mining moguls where they did it on the workers. You know, many people died. There's like this bloody history to it. So it was something at first she was excited. My family was, innovative, and they got ice and made money on it. But then they found out there are dark sides as well, and the family has its own dark history. So as you start to dive into this with her, it's really fun. You travel and meet family. They all tell their stories. It unravels well for a cozy mystery. There is murder.
Of course,
Lots of murder in this one. With people continuing to die throughout the book.
Oh, gosh. Continuing to die.
But don't worry, at the same time, Julia's sister is having a baby, so the excitement just keeps going. This one is jam-packed, but the characters are likable. The story flows really easily, so I highly suggest Iced Under, the main clam bake mystery, number 5.
Number 5. Goodness.
First 4 weren't enough.
The first 4 were not enough, and now I'm going to have to read those, too.
And I bet at some point there's a clam bake.
Yeah. The only thing I was disappointed, there was no yarn and there were no cats. And we know I love that in my cozy mysteries. So not quite as cozy.
Apparently we don't need them in Maine.
Not in Maine.
All right. Mama Linda, what were you reading this week?
Well, to begin with, I watched Conclave about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So
You were well
I
prepared
wanted
for this week's
something to
events.
listen to. I've been busy. I've had company and everything, and really have not been reading a novel, been able to get into it. So I found on Hoopla, it is called Life, My Story Through History by Pope Francis. And I only got about, I'm 67%, I think, through the book. So I'm not going to talk about it, but I highly recommend it. It, like the beginning, just tells about what it was like living in Argentina and all their relatives being back in Italy in the 40s when he was born, when he was a little boy, and how worried his family were for everything that was happening back home to the relatives. But I highly recommend that if anyone has time. It's a new book, I think. Aubrey Botsford is a translator, so I think he probably really spoke. He really talked
in his own language.
In his own, yes, and then she translated it. But highly recommend it. They sent him to Germany to learn German, and he was with a German family living when Argentina played Germany for the World Cup.
Yes.
And he actually realized, I don't think it's a good idea that I watch with them. So he went for a walk to his favorite park. And anyway, you'll love hearing what all he had, because he was so excited Argentina won that year.
Was that in the midst of like 2005 kind of range?
Yeah, I don't have the year written down.
I feel like I knew people who were there.
Yes, yes.
Could have seen the
But
Pope
anyway,
walking.
as I say, it was just really, but I didn't finish the book. So I'm quickly going to tell you a little bit. The last book I read was The Bird Hotel.
Yes.
And
This
by
is a familiar
Joyce
title.
Maynard.
And Mom, how did you discover Joyce Maynard?
Well, I met her at the book talk that the Friends of Delaware Library.
Yes, shout out friends. You've got my mom hooked.
And I have been waiting to read one of her books with my book club at Griswold.
Yes.
But Miami University has a book club too, and for the first time I read along with them. And then she just after we finished the book, then we had our book talk. And I just listened to it 2 nights ago. And she tells that, like, The Bird Hotel is very different from the other books she has written. She made her first trip to Guatemala when she was 19 years old, which is really rather sad when you know the whole story of her life. But then in March of 2020, when COVID hit, she had a group of ladies there doing, where she was training them to be writers. And she finished Count the Ways. 2 of the people, because of COVID, decided to stay with her. I think some of the other ones flew home, but 2 decided. They ended up being there for 6 months.
Whoa, I know.
Yeah. And during that time, she finished Count the Ways. And then, they realized, okay, I've got to do something. And, she had, in the back of her mind, she had sort of been thinking about writing something about the hotel. And so she started. And then at the same time, she hired the 20 men, which I think she talked about, that built the Concetta, a little hotel, and then she hired another one to be built. Well, all of this is going on. She starts writing, and the chapters just poured out of her quickly. Every evening, the 2 girls that were there, and one was from Asia, the other I think was from England. Well, they couldn't wait to see what she had written for that day, and she says it. Let's see here.
My mom takes extensive notes.
I do.
This is wonderful.
Yeah. But anyway, meanwhile, she jumps around a little bit. she says it's a rare writer who is not well read, and she can hardly read. She really reads, which she said, I'm no longer ashamed of this fact. And then she goes on to say that she wrote one book in 11 days.
Goodness.
She'd been criticized for being a political person, but she said, my characters are political.
Sure.
You know, it
Right.
really isn't she. She said, although in 2016, her character she baked a cake that never was eaten, as Hillary didn't win. But she says, but that's a political character, you know. Anyway, she had a secret. Growing up, she couldn't tell anybody that her father was alcoholic. But she, you know, now can write about it and share it in books so that people are aware of the problem.
So this is twice
Yes.
that you've seen Joyce. Then you
This
saw her
is-
with her friends.
Well, yeah,
and then
it was all on Zoom, and it was fun to watch her
And then
because
you did
I
the
did
Zoom,
get to see
yes.
her. Yeah.
Yeah.
that is
So-
really cool.
So
And thank you, friends, because I'm getting updates on all of this, and I can't leave Joyce Maynard now either.
well, the
Right?
one thing I want to tell you is there is going to be a sequel to
oh, okay.
The Bird Hotel.
To the Bird Hotel.
It is in the works. Yes, it's coming.
That's the one thing that I think I love the most whenever authors, you know, you have an author visit is when they give you those like sneak previews, publicly or privately. Tommy Orange did it when he came to visit us about his poetry. He was telling us that a poetry book was coming, which we found out later, you know, was published. Neil Schusterman, whenever he came to visit us, he didn't say it publicly, but when we were driving him back to the airport, he teased his next novel. So that was fun too. Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things is a little behind the curtain that you get when you actually have author talks.
Well, and the other interesting thing, I thought I had read American Dirt, and I knew there was a lot of
Yes.
controversy because it was an American that wrote about Mexico. So, of course, she knew she was going to have difficulty getting this, and so she had to go with a very small publisher to do The Bird Hotel. Although Count the Ways could go with a big, you know, Harper, big publisher.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that was
Wonderful.
That was interesting.
Thanks,
Well,
Mom.
I'm going to give just a quick, because the book that I read this week, I kind of hated.
Oh, it's going to be one of my lifetime favorites again, isn't it?
But no, I don't think it will. Okay, so it's a romance novella. So Ali Hazelwood, it's called Two Can Play, and I listened to it. It's only available on audio. You can get it on Libby. And so, you still are able to get it through our library. It's not an Audible exclusive, but it is only on audio. And it's I think what I've discovered about myself, you know, sometimes people say like, oh, I've dated a lot of people, but I figured out what I don't like. This is kind of how I felt about this book. Like I dated this book and now I know what I don't like. And so I
love that.
It's a romance novel. The concept is cute. It's two rival gaming development companies who both get a pitch from this one like kind of other company who wants them to develop their game. A third in a series of games. The first two didn't quite do it right, but they feel like if these two companies work together, one has really good graphics, one has really good story building, then they can really put it together well. But the two companies are rivals, of course. And so the bosses of both the companies decide they'll go on a weekend retreat paid for by this third-party company who wants them to develop it so that they can all, you know, have some team building activities. And of course, the two companies hate each other because they're rivals. And so what could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
So I don't love the enemies to lovers trope. This one also has a miscommunication, which should not have been a miscommunication. Basically, the girl from the one team and the guy from the other team have run across each other's paths for 4+ years at this point because they work in the same industry. And she thought that he hated her because he avoids her and he won't look at her. And we're like, oh, is it because she's too beautiful? In fact, it is. You know, and also at
Lloyd needs to have that problem.
And then also the reason why he avoids her, spoiler, is because she had a really bad job interview that he kind of like helped her like get. he didn't know it was going to be a bad interview. The guy harassed her during the interview. And so she came out and she's kind of traumatized coming from this terrible interview. And he asks her out, but he does it in a really bad way. She's like, oh my gosh, it was really awful and everything was terrible. And I just like need a minute. And he was like, well, do you want to go get a coffee? And she's like, no, I'm fine. I think I'll be okay. So he took that as a rejection and then decided that he was going to avoid her for the next 4 years because she turned him down so harshly. And I was like, my gosh, your male fragility is just like seeping through your skin. So I from that moment on, I was like, I'm done. I hate him. I hate enemies to lovers. I hate miscommunication. I always knew I hated miscommunication, though. My mom, speaking of Mother's Day, hello, Mother, watched soap operas my entire childhood, getting ready in the morning. She would have days on her that she would recorded from the day before. And the thing that frustrated me the most about the soaps is when they didn't talk to each other, when this person is over here talking about this problem and this person's over here talking about this problem. And I'm screaming, why don't they just talk to each other?
Whereas I felt like, I can figure out how to solve this. I can figure this out.
Yeah, and I would say he goes and talks to her, and look, we've cut 5 episodes from the storyline. So yeah, I really hated it, and it made me mad mostly. So
Wow.
I would say don't read Two Can Play if you don't like the enemies to lovers, miscommunication. And I think there's a third trope in there somewhere, but
if you love a train wreck, this book's for you.
Maybe read it if you do. And that's all I've got for that. I've never done this before, but in the middle of this book, I was so angry that I went onto Goodreads and immediately gave it a 1 and said, I hate this. And then
did the author respond? Because the one time I did that, the author responded.
I hope she does. I'm still mad about it. Oh, and my mother texted me too. She very much also doesn't like the miscommunication. So glad we were both there together, Mom. All right, with that, we'll take a break. We'll come back on the other half, and we'll have more Mother's stories to finish out our Mother's Day show. So stay tuned.
If it's happening in Delaware and Union County, it's on The Breakfast Club. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on the new My 96.7.
The Mid-Ohio Breakfast Club.
Goodreads review for that book 3 times.
Ugh.
It was like, ugh, I hate this book. And the man just can't get over himself because she said no one time. Ugh.
And I can't write a review now because of authors responding to me, and I was so horrified when I let them down.
Yeah, no, she can earn it back. I'll read another one if she doesn't make her characters awful.
Hopefully she's not a listener right now.
You know what? And I'm pretty transparent. So anything that I would say here, I would say to somebody's face. So I don't feel so bad about that.
I absolutely do agree with that.
You
are
believe
honest, but you're also kind.
Yeah, exactly.
So honesty doesn't have to be mean.
Well, the steamy parts were fine, but I hated the characters. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever characters.
Yeah, it's fine. And then my husband, while we're staying on this, I was like seething when I came home. He's like, why are you so mad? I was like, this book. And he was like, a fictional book with fake people.
Okay, my husband would relate to you right now. He gets very upset about fictional characters and fictional things happening. We have bad days when a TV show goes wrong.
Exactly. Well, that's not what we're here to talk about anyway. We're here to talk about Mother's Day, and we came up with a theme: raising readers, because your mama, Mama Linda Myers, is here with us today. My mama, Mama Paula Drum, is listening today, and they both did a really good job raising readers and getting books in our hands. My mom in my hands, and also in the hands of the rest of the kids at Tuscarawas Avenue and York Avenue, or York Elementaries.
Because what did your mom do?
My mom was an elementary school librarian, media tech center specialist, all the names that have gone, through the years, through the 90s to today. But yeah, so she got books in our hands, and she read stories, and she helped us find ones that really matched our personalities and things like that. But what did you do, Mama Myers?
I have the best memories, so I'm going to pipe in if you don't say them.
Well, I was a speech therapist, so I tried to help children that had maybe difficulty learning to read.
Yeah.
And we were doing more with language by the time I retired, and I really was enjoying that part of
Watching
my work.
Mom learn about language at the end of her career is what I think makes me so
the phoenix-
passionate to keep training,
phonetic
keep
awareness.
learning those
Yeah.
new things. Yeah, phonetic
that
awareness was
just
just
came
coming
out like in around 2000.
And when I was
Yeah,
in
the
library
last-
school, they just started the early literacy
Yeah.
where phonetic awareness or those, phonemes and the
Yeah.
rhymes
Right.
was starting to become those skills
the-
you needed to learn to read.
For dyslexic children.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about, about your career and how it evolved and how kind of books and words all played a part in that.
Well, I became a speech therapist mainly because in 11th grade I asked my math teacher, I said, I don't know what I want to major in. Do you have any idea? And she says, Linda, I don't know much about it, but there is a speech therapist in Marietta, Ohio. And this was back in 1959, 1960, 59, I think. I graduated from high school in 61. She said, I think you need to go up and spend a day with her.
Wow.
That's how I became a speech therapist.
And that was it.
That
Yeah.
was it. And I was going to go to Ohio Wesleyan because my oldest sister went to Ohio
Yes.
Wesleyan.
Nice.
And I realized that's not going to work because I have to go to a state school. And Marilyn's husband had been to Miami University.
Go
and
Red
They
Hawks!
showed me Miami. And I became a Red Hawk.
I was
And
the only
Indian.
daughter who followed suit.
Right.
And little did you know how close you would end up being to Ohio Wesleyan anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. But I'll tell you a little bit about my husband. He loved to read too.
Yes.
Yes.
And shortly after, I think we were married at this point. We were visiting my parents in Belpre, and I was working, putting him through law school, and he went to like the drugstore and came back with a stack of books, and
This
he
is
had
the story.
spent like $20 or more on them. And I mean, we didn't
Remember
have,
the time
I
period,
could
we're
buy
talking the
groceries
60s.
for
Oh, yeah.
a week for $20.
Oh, yeah.
I was making a little over $5,000 and putting him through law school
year.
in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I was so upset that he had spent all that money on books.
Books.
So from that point on, I started picking out his books. And then
typing them on a typewriter.
I would list which book I would get so I wouldn't get the same book over again. And then the other thing I want to tell you about him, he would be upset if I brought home a book written by a lady. It had to be a male
I
author.
know. No.
Yes. Yeah. But then all at once audiobooks came out and we started listening to them in the car
Yes.
and he would listen to either.
He was,
Yes.
he grew. Dad
Yes,
grew.
he really. I also got him to go to many different genres.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
He couldn't just read Patterson and
And here's an example. Studies say that if your parents are readers,
Yes.
you are more likely to be a reader when you grow up.
Yes.
Even if your child isn't reading now, make sure to talk about books that
Yeah.
you're loving. That's what helps inspire those readers later on.
Well, and I'll give a Mama Drum story that there were many books that I was assigned to read when I was young, and some of them I got into, but there were just some that I didn't, and I wasn't into certain ones. And I remember one; it was the Egypt Game, and I
loved it.
struggled with that. There was something about it that I just could not get through, and so one of my distinct memories was my mom sitting next to me in my bed and reading the chapter. And I hated that book, but I have this memory here, how many years later, of my mom reading it to me. I'm doing the same thing with my girls right now. They don't hate the books that we're reading right now. They like them. So, but one day they might get to a point where they
Yes.
have an assigned thing.
And we read every night. My
Yes.
favorite memory,
Well,
Mom, is the couch.
I know we only had a TV in our rec room. And
Downstairs.
my husband, yes, and it was downstairs. And my husband would go downstairs every night to watch his TV shows. And the girls and I would take our turns on the couch, each girl.
Yeah.
And especially the summer before they entered second grade, I made sure that they read as many I can read books. And we went from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. And I feel that that's one reason
Mama
became-
Myers' own summer reading club.
yeah,
Mama
yeah.
Myers' own summer reading club.
Well, ladies, this has been a joy, and we could talk all day, but we don't have time. We
We'll
simply
just
don't
have to
have
have
the
Mom
time.
back.
We will. thank you so much for joining us. This has been really, really wonderful. My mom, thank you for listening as well. To all mothers out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for being readers and for growing readers too. And have a happy Mother's Day.
And can I add?
Yes.
Thank you, Delaware County.
Thank you, Delaware County.
Thank you, Delaware
Tuesday
County,
was a
for
wonderful
passing
night.
our levy.
Yes.
We are going to show you it was worth every cent.
Absolutely. You'll see the plan soon. Until next week, we'll see you in the stacks.